So our next speaker is Markus. He's going to go quickly into cassava, the ancient crop, and new products. Markus, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. It's worthwhile focusing a bit on cassava, because cassava is actually the biggest crop in Africa. And I will talk about this a bit later. But it's completely, I would say that it's a huge potential, but completely underestimated. So I just want to give you a little bit of a background of myself. So I've been working in the food industry for Nestle for about 20 years. And about 4 years ago, I came to Africa, to Southern Africa, and joined a company. And we basically built 3 cassava factories, one in Ivory Coast and 2 in Mozambique. And by the way, I was commenting on the beer, sorry for the comment, but we are basically producing the cassava flour for the Impala beer in Mozambique. So I'm quite involved in that, and it's a great product. And by the way, it has quite a high popularity, and market share is one of the highest in the beer industry or in the beer landscape in Mozambique. Okay, so as I said, so 4 years we have worked on cassava. We have now started a new company, AFCO, and it's quite interesting because I'm partnering with Zinma Basso. So we are actually focusing on exactly the topic. We want to unlock the potential of the value chain in Africa by using local crops. So it's quite exciting to have that webinar, and we hope we can help anybody or the food industry here in Africa to really utilize crops, what you all presented for, and really commercialize it. And not only local commercialization, I think we should also export into other continents and really create value, which then flows back into Africa. So now I'm coming to the topic of cassava. So first of all, what is cassava? So it's basically, I said it before, it's the biggest crop in Africa, but it's not the biggest commercial crop. It's the biggest crop grown mainly in households, so smallholder farmers. And the sad part is it's not an African crop, but was probably brought first by the Portuguese in about 1570 into Africa. Why is it an interesting crop? It's extremely efficient in converting sunlight into starch. So on average, cassava yields twice as much starch per hectare in Africa as corn. So it's a fantastic crop. It's quite sturdy, doesn't need a lot of water. I would say the disadvantage is it is mainly consisting of starch. So it's not a really nutritious crop. So it would, if you base your diet on cassava, you would have a deficiency of protein, and it doesn't also not contain a lot of fats and oils. However, it has fiber, which also can be utilized. The usage at the moment is mainly in homes, in local recipes. You also mentioned gari. West Africa has a huge variety of different local foods based on cassava. But that's basically home usage, so it's traditional usage. It's not yet used really industrially, and the processing at the moment in Africa, when you look at the landscape, is very poor. I visited a few cassava factories. Most of them were standing, and I'm coming to that, what the main issue is, or the main challenge. So basically standing because surprisingly there is not enough supply of cassava roots, even though it's the biggest crop. It's a bit crazy. Then what are the opportunities? I think the opportunities locally start with producing simple flour, so that can be very easy processing. But the real opportunity is the tapioca starch market, which is about almost 9 million tons globally. But at the moment, it's basically only produced from Thailand. Thailand is the biggest producer. But I can give you some hope, because at the moment in Thailand, there's a huge issue with a drought, which has destroyed a lot of crops. plus they have the mosaic virus. So the next 3 years is a window of opportunity for us here in Africa to industrialize cassava and push tapioca starch into the market. So I think it's a huge opportunity, 8.8 million tons. And then, of course, I mean, there's also a market for other carbohydrates like glucose syrup, maltose. You can do all kind of polyalcohols. And then what was mentioned before, beer. So beer is it started already. I think the hurdle in beer is that the beer brew masters, they are traditional people, so they are a bit reluctant to come up with a new raw material. I'm working now with Novozyme, global structure of Novozyme. So we're doing tests, and just last week I had a telephone conference with them. They did a test compared to traditional maize grits, and based on the tests, cassava has many really significant advantages versus the maize for making beer. So it is probably coming up more and more in the next few years, I promise you. And the taste is also not bad, by the way. Now the last point, challenges. What are the challenges in cassava? So I think one thing is it has some cyanide compounds, which can be quite toxic. So it needs proper processing, but that's usually easy to get under control. The biggest challenge is actually the supply. So it's very unstable. Even though it's the biggest crop, it's not grown commercially. So if I say it's the biggest crop, it's the biggest crop in gardens. So it's basically grown in gardens by smallholder farmers for themselves, but they are not growing it commercially. So that's why if you pull a lot of volumes, you never get a stable production. And most factories I've seen were standing or running at very low capacity utilization due to the fact that just the supply chain is not yet developed. And that will take probably a few years. And that needs to be fixed first before we really bring in more factories for cassava. Then I think quality accreditation, I said at the last point, that's also, I would say that's a minor challenge, but that's important to have a proper quality accreditation for your products, because otherwise you cannot buy it or sell it into the global market. So yeah, that's quick summary of cassava. Please let me know if you have any questions. You can also contact us through email or WhatsApp. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much, Markus, and thanks for highlighting the issue of supply chain, because I think it's actually the elephant in a small room or in a big room. We have a problem. Indigenous crops, indigenous foods, especially supply chain and yields and productivity is a problem. So I also take from Tshwane that we need to invest in research in this. So I would say let's put our money where our mouths is.